Bill Heemer has been sharing the darkest moments in modern history for almost 30 years. But the last story he would ever tell is his own. You recognize his soothing voice when a national crisis hits, but you don't know the price tag of his existence, which consists solely of living in the midst of breaking news. Although whispers about him began more than a decade ago, Heemer has lived his entire life without a wife, without children, and without reason. When considering his journey, the motives behind his lonely existence are much more complex, much more painful than imagined. Starting his legacy in journalism, Bill Heemer's involvement in the world of journalism began well before he ever set foot in a national studio. As a young boy in Cincinnati, he found journalism in his teens as a result of hosting a radio program for a group of students. This, of course, was not glamorous, nor did he receive any rewards, nor did he do something that most teenagers aspired to do in those years. However, he derived something there that he could not find anywhere else: purpose. At 16, he practiced every program as though the whole world was listening, staying late in school to practice, editing his own notes, and writing scripts long after everyone had left. Other teens were exploring what it meant to be in a relationship, to go to parties, and to have weekend outings. But Heemer was already honing skills for a profession that later in life would require him to give everything he has. It's not happenstance that he started that way. It marked the start of what he would do the rest of his life, which is what he accomplished when he attended Miami University. He not only majored in journalism, but he lived journalism. He selected all his electives, clubs, and even internships based upon media. He spent countless hours on campus radio stations, stayed late at student-run news operations, and took few breaks. College can be a time when people are discovering themselves socially and establish early in their lives. But Heemer did something else. He did all in one direction. He was not finding people. He was finding a career. There was no gap after graduation, no year off, finding himself as so many young men did. He plunged directly into television, accepting a sports reporting position at WCPO-TV in Cincinnati. Sports reporting may seem like an easy assignment, but it was anything but. The late nights, weekend assignments, unpredictable schedules, and always being on call to convey live and accurate information made it highly demanding. Heemer enjoyed that type of atmosphere. He greatly enjoyed the immediacy and excitement that sports reporting provided. These early years also uncovered one other thing. When it came to a choice between personal time and professional development, Heemer had no doubts. He always put work first. This dedication might have impressed CNN one day. In 1995, he moved on to national news when he was just 30 years old. This change changed him from a local journalist to a recognizable face on American television. The next 10 years were harsh, exhilarating, and defining. He could feel himself being dispatched everywhere. The aftermath of the hurricanes, the conventions, the unfolding investigations, and some of the darkest moments in history. It was the Florida recount in the year 2000 that brought him to the forefront of the national scene. He lived out of his suitcases for weeks, eating in between live shots, dealing with the never-ending grind. He became known for his endurance, but in the midst of his success, his personal life continued to elude him. And then came September 11, 2001, and nothing would ever be the same. Heemer was sent off to Afghanistan, reporting on the war zone. The danger, the remoteness, and the impact of seeing a world crisis with his own two eyes change him in perpetuity. This was the type of reporting that did not have any room for any form of dating, for any form of normalcy in his personal life. When Heemer left CNN in 2005, he had experienced more breaking news in one lifetime than most newscasters see in a career span. Coming on board at Fox News in 2005 was both triumph and silent revolution for Bill Heemer. It was the best opportunity he ever had. It was also the point where his last hope started unraveling. The network knew immediately that he was a pressure-worthy reporter, that he spoke clearly, and that he was one of those few people able to respond to chaos without going haywire. So he became priceless. Fox Network networked him in every big story of the year. He became a co-anchor of America's Newsroom and later allied with Dana Perino. He has been able to turn his program into one of the most reliable morning shows because of his chemistry with his co-anchor based on discipline and instincts. Fans loved their predictability, and management trusted Heimer in the most challenging times in terms of news cycle seasons. But meanwhile, off-camera, such trust was never free. When other journalists left at the end of his shift, Heimer often did not. When there was breaking news in the middle of the night, he was expected to be available to report it well before the sun came up. When there was disaster, whether it was one disaster or 10, he was always called to cover it. Iowa election coverage, Florida hurricanes, terror probes in Boston, Haiti earthquake recovery, London in the wake of bombings there in 2005, military base shootings in Texas. It never ended. This was not a job that you could look forward to having dinner plans next week or return home for an anniversary, or even have a simple weekend with someone you cared for. It is a life that was constructed on uncertainty, and ultimately, that uncertainty became the subtle antagonist of his personal world. During this time, he was still dating Canadian model Dara Tomanovich. He started dating her the same year that he started at Fox News. On the surface, this was a dynamic couple. One was a successful news anchor, and the other was a model for the world. But for them, time moved at different beats. For Dara, her world was all about photo shoots, endorsement gigs, and high-fashion networking circles that were light years away from news sensationalism. For Eric, deadlines, scoops, and travel to wherever the news was happening were his reality. They tried to traverse this gap for almost 8 years, but the crevices grew larger with every skipped holiday, every sudden trip, every postponed meeting. When he was forced to pick between the narrative and the relationship, he picked the narrative, which was a cycle he'd been maintaining ever since high school. It was an understood thing in 2013. The relationship was over. There was no declaration, no official statement for the public consumption of the press. It was apparent that both of them recognized that the life he was living wouldn't, and couldn't, make any more space for anyone else. But it wasn't until after the breakup that the public had any knowledge of Tomanovich's arrest for driving under the influence. Briefly, their personal lives crept into the headlines. But the limelight only reaffirmed what Heimer had believed all along, that the closer his personal life edged toward the headlines, the faster his world fell apart. There would be no red carpet appearances or photos of the two of them smiling happily in public or any kind of statement submitted to the media. As his career took off with Fox News, the world of his personal life grew quieter and quieter. The more successful he became, the further his normal life seemed to retreat. It seemed as though once Bill Heimer's relationship concluded in the year 2013, an odd phenomenon developed. Rather than being removed from the spotlight, he and his life became a tabula rasa, a perpetual blank slate of imagination and assumption. Every woman he appeared alongside as an interview partner or as a co-anchor was suddenly the focus of headlines. Sandra Smith, his co-anchor for America's Newsroom, was one of the first names that found its way within the rumor mills. The relationship that had been developed through countless hours of working together was misconstrued as soon as they appeared together on screen, and their comfort was perceived to be a sign of an adulterous relationship. The rumors were so pervasive that Smith and her husband, a marketing executive named John Connolly, had to be mentioned within media circles to squelch rumors of an affair. Nothing had ever happened between them, but people had a hard time understanding that just because they worked together, that was all there was to their relationship. Megyn Kelly was the next. Their cordial moments at Fox triggered a series of rumors. Kelly and Heimer denied they ever dated. Still, a denials clause does not cut much ice. His continued bachelorhood made each encounter a plot waiting to happen. Dana Perino, perhaps his strongest professional associate, became the next name associated with him. His long-term collaboration with Perino at America's Newsroom on breaking news storylines evoked vast curiosity. Perino has remained married since 1998. He did neither. But each side's silence just spurred the imaginations of people. Then came 2019 and the revelations that changed everything. A manipulated shirtless photo spread on social media, purporting to be Heimer himself. It was deceitful and would later be sourced from a Tiger Woods photo manipulation, but resulted in his very real struggle with people's curiosity about his sexuality. He was normally a very secretive man when it came to his relationships, hosting his daily program on live television every morning in front of millions of people, and a camera crew taped live in his house every day for his For Yourself segment. But this led him further into a life even quieter and more secretive than he had been prior. Being a national evening news anchorman means being ever ready. His typical days began before dawn and continued late at night. When a breaking story occurred, he was expected to be ready no matter the time, holiday, or schedule he had made. There would be no waiting for a hurricane, a shooting, an election, a terrorist attack, or a politically tumultuous event. These happened at random moments, and Hemer was supposed to be there, leading his audience through the turmoil while experiencing it himself. Some deployments took days, while others took weeks. During the Iraq War, the aftermath of the bombings of 9/11, the Boston bombing, and the Sandy Hook shooting, Hemer was in the middle of the disaster. This work did not just interfere with his life. It instead was his life. A relationship is hard to build if a ringing telephone call can launch you across the country or the world in a matter of hours. A family is even more difficult to build if life is a revolving door of airports, hotel rooms, and borrowed studios. By his mid-50s, he had developed a routine that had always been based on dedication, professionalism, and self-sacrifice. The kind of stability that would have made his spouse happy had never been an option. His colleagues respected him. His viewers trusted him. The newsroom needed him. However, respect and trust can never replace the emptiness that comes with missing holidays, broken plans, or always saying goodbye. It seems that in many ways, Hemer never had the choice not to live without a wife. But as he grew older, the trajectory of his life emerged more clearly. He did not live a life that was random or disorderly. Rather, it was simply the result of 80 years of decision-making. The legacy that he has left is the work that he has done, the sense of constancy that he has brought to the world that has been so unstable, but also the idea that success is not always what one thinks that it will be when the finish line meets the finish line, as the finish line meets the finish line at the finish line. It's now your turn. Do you think that Bill Hemer had no chance in marriage because of his demanding career, or was this just his choice in regards to being in a solo life? Leave your comments below, and don't forget that you can like and subscribe.